Hey class, welcome to IC304, Disciple Making and Church Planting in North America. I'm Dustin Connor, the professor for the class, and we're going to go over the syllabus here in the first week of the course just to go over all the assignments, and also as questions come up, feel free to respond via email or through Blackboard, any questions about the syllabus. But let's go through it today and just kind of see what we're looking at for this semester. So this class is basically a class on mainly on discipleship, but it has applications towards how disciple making and discipleship are integral to a church plant. And so we're going to be doing a lot of conversation and relating the themes of evangelism and discipleship, disciple making, with its use in church planting, how they're two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. So anyways, we're going to start kind of going through. This is a 15-week online class, and so it is not a session 1 or session 2. It is all 15 weeks of the semester fully online. This class was taught on campus, so if you have any video lectures that look like it was a campus environment, 3 or 4 years ago when we started the program, I was teaching these on campus, but now they're completely online. And so first of all, there's my contact information at the top of the syllabus. I do live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and so if you, depending on your cell phone plan or your phone plan, if you need to make a phone call, just know that international charges may apply. It's easiest for us to line up something like a Skype call or a Google Hangout through our Piedmont addresses. So there's many ways to contact, but that's the simplest way there. You can send me a text or email. Go over the course description, study the relevant theories and practices as they relate to making disciples and planting churches in a North American context. As I said before, we're kind of relating those two things. It's primarily on discipleship, but we're going to talk a lot of its application in church planting. Students will learn to develop a missional theology. You'll notice that the first 3 or 4 lectures of making disciples and planting churches driven by contextually appropriate vision and biblically qualified values of gospel mission. So we're going to talk a lot about that, especially at the beginning, and how it branches off in some practical ways that we do discipleship in churches. Emphasis will be placed on examining the church planter's calling, character, and capabilities. That's actually a part of an older description. I will let you guys know that this course has kind of evolved over the last 3 to 4 years to where we are getting ready to basically shift this course into completely just about disciple making and not as much on the church planting. And so at the beginning, we were talking a lot about the church planter, their calling, their character and capabilities. We don't cover that in this class anymore. That's actually covered in another class. So that's just a little bit of a change, more so just coming out of just updating some course descriptions for the future. So emphasis will be placed on actually developing a discipleship pathway and disciple-making environment in your church or church plant. Course delivery, of course, is everything's online through Blackboard. We will use Google Drive and Google Docs a whole lot, but you should be familiar with that as being students at Piedmont. Just do note that a class just goes from a Monday to a Monday, so even on the course schedule that we're going to look at in just a bit, you will notice that the dates go from Monday to Monday. So basically, one week is starting as another one is finishing on that Monday. So everything is due at 11:59 p.m. on Mondays, even though that week's content and things have actually started as well. You have 3 required textbooks. You have Discipleship by Jim Putman and Bobby Harrington. You have Jeff Vanderstelt Saturate, and then Jared C. Wilson's The Imperfect Disciple, which is a new one, adding to the program. It's a brand new book for this fall, and it's one that actually I read a few months back, and it hits a lot more on the personal side of discipleship, and as the title says, The Imperfect Disciple, Grace for People Who Can't Get Their Act Together. It's just a really helpful book, and so you'll be reading that throughout the semester as well. There's another required resource, and it's not a required textbook, even though you could buy the book. It's Francis Chan's Multiply. You can buy a hard copy of the book, or you can actually go to the multiplymovement.com website. You can actually download, like they have every single chapter in full PDF that you can actually just download and read. You can watch videos that accompany it, or you can actually download the app on iOS or Android and actually read every every word from the book is actually built into the app as well. And so our church plant here in Calgary that I pastor, we actually use Multiply for our new disciples, our new believers, and we get them a hard copy if they want, or they can pull up the app. And so, like for instance, my wife leads a ladies group of 4 ladies discipling a new believer right now, and they are almost done with the book, and they do a few chapters each week, and most of them have a hard copy, while a few of them just pull up their phone. So you'll be using it for an assignment, but it's not a required text in the sense that you don't have to buy it. You actually can get it completely free unless you just want to buy it. And then we use various PIU applications such as Google Drive, Hangouts, and Blackboard, etc. Course objectives you can kind of read on your own, but I will highlight that number 3 there, design a discipleship pathway. We're going to spend a lot of time this semester discussing what that is and how it is essential to not just starting a church, but actually just leading any kind of ministry that you want to see people grow in their spiritual life. And we also will apply that in a lot of conversation towards church planting. Course requirements and assignments, the big one. What do you all want to know about? Every class that I teach, we always do a scripture reading and journaling. And so you will read from the pastoral epistles. So it's 1st, 2nd Timothy, and Titus, 13 total chapters. So you will have a chapter due each week. Follow the course schedule in Blackboard that have everything updated, listed for you. This will be done on one Google Doc that the whole class shares. So every student has access to edit this one Google Doc. That way you can actually see what your peers are posting and have interactive conversations on what God is teaching you. So that Google Doc will be shared with you. So you'll get an email with a link that has been shared with you by me. And then you open that Google Doc up, and the full instructions are at the top of the document explaining what you're supposed to do each week. And those are due, like I said, Mondays at 11:59 each week. Next thing is video lectures and content. So each week you'll have anywhere from 1 to 2 video lectures at various links. Sometimes you'll have a video lecture from myself, and then maybe an extra supplemental video from an outside voice or expert pertaining to that week's topic that I felt was needed. Sometimes you may have like an audio file or a podcast or something to listen to that will still count. So I call it the kind of lecture content because it's not always just in video. But you'll have that each week in the class, and you will not have your special note there. There will be a content evaluation each week, so it may be a quiz. Sometimes it's actually a short assignment. It would be something we discuss that in that week's lecture videos, have you work on some kind of like practical assignment for that week. And so also note that content evaluations will not cover any textbook reading. Okay, textbooks have their own assignment. The content evaluations, whether it's a quiz or whether it's a short assignment you turn in or something else, it'll only cover the content from the lecture video, audio file, or even sometimes have an article that you will read for the lecture content that is separate from the textbook reading. So just take note of that the content evaluations only cover the video. Next are the reading summary outlines. This is where your textbooks come into play. And so now the textbook reading does correspond pretty well to the lecture content. And so when things that you're reading are actually speaking in and flowing from the lecture content. But I have these things that I have you guys turn in called reading summary outlines. And basically, as you read, I want you to actually not just be able to remember a few facts and take a quiz, but also to have something that you can take away from this class that will help you. And so basically, a reading summary outline is I'm asking for each chapter that you read. So for every single chapter, I want you to list out 5 key items from that chapter. Okay, so if there's 3 chapters to read that week, you will have 15 total items that you need to list on your reading summary outline. So reading summary outline could be 1 page, it could be 2 pages, depending on how many chapters you have to read that week, and it also depends on the content that you choose. For instance, the content that I'm looking for, 5 key items, means something like a main point or a key sentence. Okay, just something that the author says this is the important part. Maybe it's an important list. Maybe the author says something like, the 5 things to do at your church to ensure you're having a disciple-making culture. Now each item that you list counts as one of the 5, and so if you find that list, the 5 things that does this, then yours are done. If that's the 5 things you want to remember from that chapter. Key definitions: if they define a word or an idea or a concept, put down that definition and give the whole thing. Noteworthy quotes. If they just have a really good quote or they quote someone else, you might want to put that down. Really anything that you deem important from the reading. So what I want you to do is basically ask yourself, what are the 5 main things that I need to know from this chapter? And you'll jot those down as your 5 key items. So it's going to look different. It could be a quote, it could be the list, it could be definitions. It's just whatever was stuck out. So like when I personally read a book, I always have a pen. I'm always writing and underlining and putting a star, circle, that sort of thing, question mark, whatever it is. And then in the back of the book, either have like a sticky note or something, or one of the long sticky notes, or just write in the empty pages at the back. I write down like key thoughts, key quotes, key lists, so I can have a quick guide. And so this is what the RSO becomes for you. It becomes a quick guide to go back and look back into your reading. And if you have a full 15 weeks of doing this through 3 different textbooks on disciple making, and usually the textbook reading for the most part kind of lines up into your topics, then what you've got at the end of this semester is a 30, 40, maybe even 50-page document of all these essential lists and quotes and definitions about discipleship and about disciple making. And so it's actually really helpful for you. And then if you, I do recommend and actually require that you keep it all in one document. So whether it's a Google Doc or a Word document, it doesn't matter. Keep everything on one main document. So that way you'll always have that one document that has all these lists and quotes and everything. And each week in Blackboard, I actually want you to submit the whole document. Okay, I'll say that again, submit the whole document. So in week 5, you'll be down, probably down on page 10, 11, 12 or somewhere. I want you to submit all 12 pages, submit the whole document each week, because that way I can track your progress and also see that you've gone in order. And it saves you from having the time of only saving, the last page or two as a separate PDF and exporting or copy and pasting to another document, trying to save you some time. Keep everything in one document, whether it's a Google Doc, which is what I recommend and what I use personally, or it's a Word doc or Pages, whatever you want to use, but turn in the whole document each week, okay? So when you turn in for week 5, it'll actually have 5 weeks worth of reading summary outlines. And what I'll do, I scroll to the bottom of it and I find that you have the heading and the chapters. I look at that and I make sure you have it for that week, okay? And also lets you, like I said, have a very simple guide about disciple making with a really quick reference to find some very key information. So use this for yourself. I want to see that you are gleaning key things from the textbook reading and that you're applying it, but I also want you to have something tangible that you can take away and use in your current and future ministry. This will also help you in some of your other assignments in the class, just to give you a quick reference. So that is due each week, and the textbook reading is listed in the course schedule that we'll look at in a minute. Discussion boards. We will, since it's an online class, we want to encourage online conversation, and so we will use discussion boards in Blackboard primarily for 2 things. The first is to interact with other students to discuss that week's topic, and so whatever topic we're talking about, there'll be a question posted, and just want you to simply interact with it, give your thoughts, give your example, whatever it is, your critique, whatever that is, and I want you to be able to analyze the content, formulate your own viewpoint, and then be able to articulate back to your peers your thoughts on the topic. So I do want you to note that not every week will have a discussion board related to that week's content. So there are some weeks built in where you have extra assignments for other things, or the textbook reading is a little bit longer, and so I just took away a discussion board post. So not every single week. So if you get to week 5, for example, and there is no discussion board listed for the content conversation, then you don't have one. Okay, don't worry, you're not missing anything. There just simply wasn't there. It's not in every single week, but it is in the majority of weeks. The second thing we use the discussion board function for is what I call just kind of a gospel conversation update. Now, the class is called Disciple Making Disciple Making in Church Planting in North America, not just discipleship. So we'll talk about the differences between those two, but basically disciple making encompasses both evangelism and discipleship together. The act of making a disciple is sharing the gospel with them, leading them to Christ, and discipling them in Christ. And so with that combined, we want to encourage you, because there's a key to that is evangelism with lost people. We want to use discussion board to be a place where you are updating on your gospel conversations that you're having each week. And so just like your evangelism class that you may have had at Piedmont or another university, often you have to kind of submit like a weekly report on who you shared the gospel gospel with or who you talked with. This is very similar. It's a lot low-key. It's not quite as in-depth as some of those reports will be, but there are a few just simple questions that we'll ask, and this will be every week. You will have one for gospel conversation because we want you to be sharing the gospel every week. This doesn't have to be with a brand new person each week. For instance, I do a lot of very relational evangelism where I'm meeting with the same person every other week or whatever, for lunch or coffee or hanging out, whatever it is, and that's an ongoing conversation. So you may have a 15-week semester here in this class, and you only have one person that you've had a weekly conversation with, and that's what you're going to update on. That's completely fine. Or you may have 5 people, or you may have 15. Maybe you share the gospel with a different person every week. But we just want you to know, we want the class just to be able to pray for and celebrate the conversations that you're having to point people to Christ. And so everything that you are, the questions that will be asked this week, they're in the discussion board, very easy to respond to. And so we do want to encourage disciple making in a holistic sense. Your biggest project that you have in this class is what I call the discipleship relationship assignment. Every single student will practice what we call discipling people in Christ through an 8-week discipleship relationship using Francis Chan's Multiply, the one that you can buy the hardback or download the app or the PDF. So there are 2 options that you can use to fulfill this requirement. The first one is you can disciple an individual who is not yet, or maybe a brand new, or just maybe a believer who needs a little bit of help. So it's one-on-one discipleship, or you can do it with a small group. All right, so I've had students who were youth pastors or leaders in youth groups, and they took 3 or 4 of their students, and they got together at Dairy Queen or Wendy's after school each week, and they were studying this together. So you have options, because the point is I want you to practice an actual discipleship relationship in this class. And so you actually have a lot of freedom on how you use the book. You want to do 1 chapter a week, that's great. If you want to do 3 chapters a week, that's great. You have an 8-week assignment, but you can keep it going even past the class. I love hearing when students start that 8-week relationship and then it turns into a 2-year relationship because they continue to disciple that person and they get through the book and they go into other things. And so I love to hear stories when that happens. But just know for this class, you're only required to do 8 weeks with the individual. So it's best just to find somebody that you have been building a relationship with. Maybe it's someone at your church, or maybe it is someone who is not yet a believer. I love kind of pre-discipleship where we're discipling people to Christ. We're teaching them about the Bible. We're doing Bible studies, all those sorts of things in order to get them to a relationship with Jesus. As we want to explain in the class, I believe that is part of the discipleship process. It's all part of making them into a disciple. And you have those who are already Christians, and you're just encouraging and strengthening, giving them assurance in their faith and helping them grow. So you can choose either one. Choose a lost person or a saved person. It doesn't matter to me. I just want you to practice using the material. Like I said, our church plant in Calgary, we use it here. We have found the material very easy to go through. It fosters really good conversation, gets people talking, and it's really, really good for brand new believers, we have found. And so you have the freedom to kind of use that. You can choose when, how long you meet. Usually an hour, hour and a half is typical, but you have the freedom to choose that, okay? Each week's meeting does have these 3 requirements. First, a discussion of the reading for that week, whatever you decide on, chapter 1 or chapter 2 or chapters 5 through 9, whatever you want to do. And also discuss the scriptures. The author, of course, uses a lot of scripture in it, and so they'll ask questions, and there's questions built into the reading, so it's really nice. It actually helps you do it. And we also want you to have an accountability check-in for spiritual growth. Just, you're simply asking the person, how is your spiritual life in whole? If you know of a particular sin issue that they're struggling with, how is that going? How can I pray for you? How can I encourage? Just some accountability on just kind of checking in where they are. I think every discipleship relationship needs to have that. And then also just prayer together, just simply praying for one another, praying for your lost friends, and so forth. And so the goal of this project is twofold. First, to give the student guided practice in discipling another person, very practically, and to model how the one being discipled, the person you're doing it with, how they can replicate the process with another person. So every discipleship relationship that I have here in our church plant in Calgary, which is about 5 right now on a regular basis, from day one, I've been talking with these men about how in a few months I want them to go ahead and start thinking about an individual that they want to do what we do with. We do a particular Bible study method called Hear Journaling, which we'll go through in the class later. And I've already, as we're going to say, we're not going to do this for more than a year. We may only do this for 6 months, but I want you to identify someone that you can do it with, kind of multiply and replicate the process. So this project will help you do that, because as you're talking with this person, you're helping them understand the bigger picture of God's mission, of how they also need to go and do likewise, and as they go and make a disciple. You'll have a progress report each week in Blackboard that you'll submit. Just has a few questions just to check in and make sure that you met with the individual, what you covered, what you discussed, things that popped up. So it's a very simple progress report that you'll have. It'll all be posted in Blackboard. And at the end of the semester, after the 8 weeks, you'll do a summarizing video presentation, 3 to 5 minutes long, just sharing what you learned in the process of discipling this individual. So that will be part of 20% of your grade, of course. And you can see when the progress reports start actually week 6, because I want you to have time to find this person. And so you've got 5-6 weeks now to identify this individual, to start talking with who you may want to do it with, and then go ahead and make sure that by week 6 in the calendar, you are ready to have that first conversation. Now, you can start sooner. Just know that each week the progress reports won't be listed until week 6 in Blackboard. Okay, so if you start it here this week or the next, just know that it'll be a little bit later in Blackboard that you actually be able to submit it, unless you email me and say I need an easier way to do this and we can work something out. But I want to give you at least until week 6, and then starting by week 6 lets you finish in time for the semester to be done. And there are 2 exams in this course. There's a midterm exam and a final, pretty much right at halfway in the middle of the course. The first 7 weeks we'll have an exam, and the last 7 or so weeks we'll have an exam. All exams will be taken in Blackboard, and they are non-cumulative. So basically the final exam only covers from where the midterm left off forward. It doesn't cover the whole semester, and it only covers lecture videos. Okay, it does not cover textbook reading. All right. That's all the assignments. Course schedule, you can look through that and see. You'll see that on the right side here, it'll have what you need to journal, just a reminder to complete your weekly discussion boards, the reading you'll need to do, plus submitting that reading summary outline, and then just a reminder to view the lecture and complete the content evaluation. Now, the reason why this is so vague is that each week that content evaluation is different, and so you'll see that this all just says view lecture videos and submit content evaluation. Go to Blackboard for what that evaluation looks like, whether it's a quiz, a short assignment, or something else. So let me scroll through. The only break that we have is Thanksgiving, and so just take note of that. And then right after Thanksgiving is your final exam. So you get a little bit longer time to study. All your main things will be turned in before you even eat your turkey. All right, there's a category weight. You can see what percentage everything. I try to spread things out pretty evenly, so that way it kind of shares the load. But please just take note of that. The course assessment, you can see what type of assessment and what objectives at the very top it tries to meet. Grading scale, course-specific policies. This is kind of just a reminder. This is pretty standard across Piedmont, but the course follows that Monday to Monday week format like most online classes do at Piedmont. And so just make sure you're paying attention to the due dates listed in Blackboard, and know that by Monday you probably have something to turn in. All right. All assignments should be submitted by the given due date in Blackboard or on the shared Google Doc. So your scripture journal, for instance, you don't actually submit that until the end of the semester. But every week I go in and check to make sure that you posted for that week. And so even though it's on the Google Doc, I don't have a really good way to put 100 or anything for your grade. Just know that you'll keep up with it each week, and at the end of the semester you will turn in the scripture journal as one PDF, and that's the part that will be graded at the end. So you're just doing it, and I'm checking in on it. And if I go in and notice that you haven't done it for 2 or 3 weeks, then you'll just get a friendly email reminder to me to get caught up and get that done. So late assignments will be accepted, but with a 3-point deduction for each day the assignment is late. So just get things turned in on time and you will be good, unless I note otherwise. There will be some things that I'll go in and actually just let you know that I've extended a due date, or because of something that is going on in the class that I want to have a little more time on, or whatever. If that happens, you'll be notified with plenty of notice. All right, I think that's about everything that I need to cover in the syllabus. Of course, at the end you do have a couple of pages of bibliography that hopefully will be of help to you. All right, so thanks for being in this class. It's I love teaching this class as we look into the foundations of what it means to make a disciple, to actually fulfill the command of Jesus Christ to go and make disciples of all nations. And so I hope you enjoy this class. Feel free to reach out to me. My contact info at the top of the syllabus with any questions you have, and look forward to having a really great semester. We'll see you in class.